You have an appreciation for the more classic style of synthwave. What do you think about the newer offset genres of synthwave that's kind of pulling from mainstream music, maybe like 90s inspired instead of more 80s inspired electronic?
I love it as well. I think it's so great to hear that. It's great to be reminded of the music that I was jamming out to in my younger years and jamming out to music that's inspired by it now. Is it doesn't get any better than that. I love the fact that all music is inspired by other genres and other artists are inspired by others. So it's fantastic to be able to kind of hear a mix of all of the things that you love in one genre. But nothing's really one genre, it's a mix of everything. So it's still great though to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I've loved synthwave for quite some time, like 2012, 13, whatever. I've had periods where I've walked away from it. I come back a year later, and the scene sometimes sounds the same. It sometimes sounds
Yeah.
drastically different. But like you said, like, lately there's a lot of inspirations. It's still retro, but as we move on and we grow with synthwave, a lot of artists are now starting to take more risk. You didn't hear a lot of new wave Prince, sort of like Quincy Jones era Michael Jackson in early synthwave. Now you're hearing more of that. You're
Right.
hearing a lot more funk, and I like that. Like you're getting to the point where synthwave is becoming very mature.
Right. I agree. I love that. I think it's great. And you see a lot of artists that are even, on the more mainstream side, like The Weeknd, and he's definitely inspired by that sound, that kind of aesthetic of that funky synthwave kind of sound that he goes for. I love that. I love that.
When I heard Over Now, I believe it's Calvin Harris produced and the weekend featured. It was so yacht rock, like it reminded me of something you'd hear on like Miami Vice or like any of those shows. And this was before his before After Hours came out, and I was thinking, what would a synthwave inspired album by The Weeknd sound like?
Right.
And then we ended up getting it, and I
It's
think
great.
it's so incredible. It's really
Incredible.
really good.
And his music videos and his live performance, I think he's great. I mean, and I think that anyone that doesn't appreciate the sound that he has is, I don't know, they're missing out. They're not seeing it.
Absolutely. I'm a big fanboy of The Weeknd because I'm going to brag a little bit. I've known of his music since before he popped off. I'm from the same city as him, so when like he had maybe if 300 views on his early videos on YouTube before House of Balloons came out, I thought, wow, this guy's listening to Susie and the Banshees. He's listening to Beach House. He's having all these great samples
Yeah.
on his songs. He's going to be something awesome. And it's amazing that 10 years later, he's still around and he's still pulling from music that I'm listening to that I never thought would have intersected with. Like you hear Miley Cyrus, Dua Lipa, they're doing a bunch of synthwave stuff, but he's assembled the right producers. He has the right amount of songwriting. He's collaborating with others to push the sound forward, and I'm really hoping that people within the synthwave community see what he's doing and they push themselves so they can get to that, like that space as well within music.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so happy that he has gotten as big as he has gotten. And that's awesome that you're from his hometown. That's really cool. You probably have met him somewhere and didn't even realize it.
No, no, I haven't.
You're like, I would remember that.
Yeah, he had that strange hair back in the day that unfortunately inspired a lot of people to just stop brushing and combing their hair. So I feel like if I passed by him on the street, I would have been like, oh, what is that pineapple looking thing? Like, what is that? Nah,
Right.
but he is incredible. Like I look up to him. I look up to Drake. I know they're very mainstream artists, but just to see how they pull from smaller genres and they will sometimes name drop or they'll use writers within those musical genres. It's nice to see that sort of like acceptance from the mainstream. You didn't always see that before, and it can't just be like people like you creating an environment where you're doing so much for the artist, because sometimes the artist just needs to get a little bit of that mainstream push.
Yeah, I agree. There's so many artists out there that are fantastic, and I really encourage people to try and discover them as much as you can. Through Spotify or any or Bandcamp, you can support the artists because there's so many artists out there that are just not being heard, and their music videos are incredible and not being seen. And with Static Realms, we try to really just focus on making it sort of in the same idea as early MTV, where you could discover people by turning on your show and just seeing artists that you really love their music. And that's what we hope to do.